In today's episode of Today in World War II, February 28th, Operation Abstention ends in a fiasco in the Aegean Sea. The last Allied cruiser is sunk in the Battle of Java Sea in the South Pacific. Construction begins on the world's first plutonium production reactor in the world in the United States. And speaking of nuclear research, the Norwegian SOE agents sabotaged the Vemork heavy water plant in Norway. Let's get started. Okay, so on February 28th, 1941, Operation Abstention was the name of a British invasion of an Italian island, which is called Castellrizo, off the Turkish Aegean coast. Its goal was to establish a torpedo boat, a mortar torpedo boat base to challenge the Italians who were still in the war at this time. But they were hoping that they could get in there and get a motor torpedo boat base established in the Greek Dodecanese Islands and wreak havoc, as they say. Well, didn't work out like they wanted to. I know this sounds really hard to understand and to comprehend, but even at this time of the war, the British were the landings were actually opposed fiercely by the Italians, their land, their air, and their naval forces, and it forced the British to retreat very quickly. And there was a lot of recriminations going back and forth between the two, saying, "Hey, um, maybe we shouldn't have over or underestimated the Italians." So I can get where they're coming from. I mean, it's interesting that they didn't exactly fight very hard in East Africa. We know how pretty terribly they fought in North Africa and all the hundreds of thousands of prisoners that were taken, Italian prisoners that were taken. The British didn't have any idea what the Italians were doing fighting on the Soviet and Eastern Front. But generally speaking, with the exception of the Navy fought bravely, and those Italian frogmen took out two German or British battleships. With the exception of them, for the most part, they really didn't show much enthusiasm to fight. Now all of a sudden they fight like the Dickens against against this invasion of an island in the Aegean Sea off of Turkey. So I can kind of understand why they maybe underestimated them, I suppose. But for whatever reason, it was a fiasco and it didn't work. The only other fiasco that reaches that depth, so that level of fiascos, is when people watch my videos and they don't subscribe. Can you believe that? Can you believe those people would do that? I don't either. I mean, just don't get me started, right? So don't be those people. Just click the subscribe button, click the bell. YouTube will notify you when I drop a video if you do that, and all will be right in the world, or at least in my world. Okay? Thanks. On February 28th, 1942, during the Battle of Java Sea, which I talked about a few days ago, we were wrapping up now. I told you that pretty much the entire Navy, the Australian, British, Dutch, American naval force was gonna go bye-bye or go, they're gonna become submarines, right? Stationary submarines at the bottom of the Java Sea. Not making light of this, but they never had a chance. And they fought bravely. Look, not in any way, shape, or form mocking the dead. In this case, the Dutch light cruiser De Ruyter, it was the flagship of the fleet. It was torpedoed and sunk by a Japanese heavy cruiser, the Hagaro, and most of the crew died. And it was it. That pretty much the last organized naval surface resistance. The Japanese in the Dutch East Indies. Got to hand it to them. They fought to the last. They tried hard, but there was no way they were going to defeat the Japanese Navy with what they had at the time. And there's no way in the world that I'm going to get the YouTube algorithm to work for me if you don't like this video and you don't leave a comment. Because the way it works, this is modern technology, this is social media, algorithms rule. like if we put this in the context of the Terminator, you know, they're the Terminators and they decide what happens. We're just like John Connor, just trying to resist here, right? The way we resist is we like each other's videos and we leave comments because this turns the algorithm to be kind and work for us and shows our content to other people out there. Whew, that was a stretch with that analogies, wasn't it? All right. So on February 28th, 1943, construction began on the world's first full-scale plutonium production center reactor in the world. This took place at Hanford, Washington, in the United States, the west coast of the U.S. And I think we know why that was important, right? Because it was all leading up to Fat Man and Little Boy, the two atomic bombs that would be dropped on Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 45 to end the war. Uh, it was, remember just a couple of years ago, FDR uh, approved the Manhattan Project. That was the code name for, the drive to get the atomic bomb before anybody else did, including Germany and the Soviet Union too, by the way. So that was all leading up to the end game, which was for Oppenheimer to have a movie made about him. Okay. And then finally, on February 28th, 1943, Norwegian agents of the British Special Operations Executive, whose mission was to set Europe ablaze, that was Churchill's desire back in 1940, they had been trained to go into Norway and conduct sabotage raids. In this case, it was six of the ones that came in that were dropped in from the UK. There were four agents already in place. There was 10 of them, and so they went after the Norsk Hydroelectric Vemork heavy water production plant in Telemark, Norway. They wanted to sabotage it because we didn't really know how far along the Germans were in their nuclear or their atomic research. You have to, when it comes to atomic weapons, you have to err on the side of caution. So even though it turned out they weren't that far advanced, we didn't know that at the time. So it was imperative that we act as if they were to make sure that we stopped them or delayed them as long as possible. In this case, they were able to deprive German scientists of about 500 kilograms of water, over 1,000 pounds of heavy water in near future heavy water production, which, helped out a lot. So that was a good thing. Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it. I can't wait to get you another video tomorrow. We're going to get into March on tomorrow.